Now it's been over 2 weeks since the battle against the Hamas militants by Israel began. And in the latest, aid is now finally being delivered to Gaza through Rafah border crossing. We're getting you the live visuals as trucks carrying humanitarian aid are moving towards Gaza. In other positive development, Hamas has also released two American mother and daughter duo who were being held captive. The release has been secured through Qatar's mediation efforts, while the Israeli Defense Forces say it's the military pressure that led to this. The White House claims that the U.S. was quote-unquote very much involved in the release, and President Joe Biden has spoken to the two Americans who were released.
The army has green light.
Speaking about the likely ground offensive, as per Israel's economy minister, the military have the green light to launch a ground invasion. The minister stressed that the primary goal of the ground operation is to eliminate Hamas off the map. However, the U.S. and its allies have been urging Israel to be strategic and clear about its goals on the ground invasion of Gaza. They have warned against a prolonged occupation and have stressed on avoiding civilian casualties. Now, this was done as part of private discussions of Western defense officials with their Israeli counterparts. Israel Defense Forces warplanes continue to attack many Hamas targets throughout the Gaza Strip overnight. Among the targets attacked, operational headquarters, anti-tank launchers, as well as other infrastructures of the Hamas group that were used by it for terrorist purposes. Now, in addition, the IDF attacked observation, anti-aircraft and sniping positions of Hamas located inside high-rise buildings. Meanwhile, a Gaza hospital says it faces imminent threat of airstrike from Israeli army. The administration of Al-Quds Hospital in Gaza says that the Israeli army has contacted them demanding the immediate evacuation of the hospital in preparation for a nighttime strike. On the international front, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has called on Israel to stop its attacks on Gaza. Erdogan said that Israeli attacks amount to a genocide. He has also urged governments worldwide to work for a humanitarian ceasefire in the region. Meanwhile, tensions continue on the other front of Israel-Lebanon border, and more than 4,200 people have been displaced from villages in South Lebanon by clashes on the border with Israel, as per local officials. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah and allied Palestinian groups in Lebanon have launched daily missile strikes on northern Israel since the outbreak of the latest Israel-Hamas war. While Israel has responded by shelling border areas in South Lebanon, so far the clashes have killed at least 22 people in Lebanon, 4 of them civilians. In other updates, evacuation efforts by various nations also continue. Plane carrying Japanese and South Korean citizens from Israel. The plane carried 60 Japanese nationals and 18 South Koreans. Yeah, now we're going straight for more on this, to our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal. Siddhant, now, after over 2 weeks, the battle against the Hamas militants, finally, we see aid coming in and being delivered to Gaza through the Rafah border crossing. Please tell us what you see on ground about the latest updates.
Well, it's a case of too little, too late. These are, of course, symbolic gestures in many ways, because the situation in Gaza is really bad. And, well, the world has agreed that we'll send some humanitarian aid, but will it justify the situation on the ground? a far-fetched idea. But all in all, we know that it's a long struggle. And when it comes to the ongoing situation, there is truth. Both sides saying that they are speaking the truth, but at the end of the day, it is a collective loss. Israelis, of course, have pointed out that because of the terror attack that happened on 7th of October, it's acting on the Hamas hideouts in Gaza Strip. And in Gaza, we know that while the action is on Hamas hideouts, there is the humanitarian loss as well. And it is a full-blown catastrophe, and the world leaders have talked about it. The UN has called it a catastrophe. So everyone is just hoping that situation does come to normalcy, but it looks like still a far-fetched idea, because we know there is a lot of anger in Israel over the development, and a lot of Israelis are keen that the Netanyahu government takes a strong action against the Hamas hideouts. And as the Western world has completely showed solidarity with the Israelis, the focus also shifts on the Palestinians. Several people we have spoken to in Tel Aviv have clearly delineated the Hamas with the Palestinians, saying that Hamas is a terror group while Palestinians are facing the brunt of their actions. And this is something that the IDF has also talked about. We spoke to the IDF spokesperson yesterday, and he also mentioned about they are concerned about the civilians, and they are coming with evacuation plans and how the civilians can go towards the south. But it's easier said than done. Situation remains precarious, concerning, use any adjective, but it looks like a long drawn battle.
So do you expect, or do you think, in your opinion, from the latest updates that you have there, that there will be more aid that will follow? Because as of now, what we know, the latest is that 20 trucks have been given permission to carry aid. But and as you rightly pointed out, that the situation is so precarious that this might not be enough. So is there going to be more aid coming in?
Well, 20 trucks is just a droplet in a concern if we compare it with an ocean. So it's just a drop. And, well, of course, everyone will be hoping that more aid comes via the Rafah border. Now, we need to understand the geographical location of Rafah border. There are several checkpoints to enter Gaza. The Rafah is the only one which is a checkpoint from Egypt, that from Egypt you can enter into Gaza. The rest, all the strip, you can enter through only Israel. Now, this development happened after the visit of the US President Joe Biden earlier this week to Tel Aviv, and after that this announcement came that the humanitarian aid will come from Egypt to Gaza. Now, Israel has made it clear that while it sympathizes with the Palestinian people, the Gazans, it is not going to allow the humanitarian aid to come to Gaza via Israel unless the hostages are released. Now, 2 hostages have been released. These are American nationals. But remember, there are 200 hostages. Number can go up, the IDF spokesperson told WION. And essentially, we know that the hostages crisis is the biggest pressure point for the Netanyahu government. Delay in the release of the hostages means more pressure against Netanyahu government. And that, of course, will translate into political development as well. Netanyahu has a strongman image. Now, we know that when it comes to taking action, if he is seen lax, if he is seen as someone who is, of course, in the right-wing territory, and he is very decisive on acting on terrorism, if he can't take action, then who will? And that means not only death for his political future, but also his party as well. So there is a hostage concern for the Israeli side. There is a humanitarian concern for the Palestinian side. How things balance out, how the world balances is the big question. And a ground offensive by the Israeli side is something that is in offering. It has been almost 2 weeks now. No ground offensive has taken place. Maybe the Israeli side is still preparing for it. But essentially, what next after ground offense? You go in the territory, and then what do? Yes, you are able to act on the Hamas hideouts, but will you control the territory? Controlling a large population. Now, remember, Gaza is a very small territory, and it is the most densest populated area on the planet. How do you control the population? So there's several facets of this entire development. There's the good, bad, and of course the grey area.
Sure, Siddhant. So after 14 days, there has been now given a go-ahead has been given to the trucks, to the humanitarian aid to get into Gaza. Whether it's going to be effective or not is something that we will have to wait and see. Thanks for joining us.